Well, we are in a treat for today. We have a treat with Susan K. Younger as our speaker, and we cannot wait to jump in. However, we must first do a little brag on our esteemed faculty members who have been presenting incredible programs in the C-Suite Network Women's Coaching and Consulting Council. So let me flip over and just do a little sharing with you on what we've been up to. And as you know, our purpose is to showcase, highlight, and promote you as a coach, consultant, trusted advisor, thought leader, and all around awesome gal. And so we just love to do this. We get to lift each other up. And I'm Kathleen Caldwell, founder of C-Suite Network's Women's Coaching and Consulting Council. I'm an author, speaker, lover of all things coaching. I've been a coach since 1998. Yes, you know the joke. We did actually start in elementary school. Ha ha. Okay. So yeah, been a coach for a long time and I love coaching. And the purpose of our council is, where do we go as coaches? We're so busy serving our clients, but where do we go to fill up our cups? And you know the analogy, you can't pour from an empty cup. So this is a place, this is a community that is growing beautifully all around the world where we can come and fill up our cups and also be promoted. So that's my mission in life, is to do that. I want to do a quick shout out to Cindy Watson, who was our speaker for our last program. She has built an incredible coaching and consulting business, global business. She's got all kinds of fabulous things, a podcast, a TED Talk, a course, books, all kinds of great things that help her with her brand. And so be sure to watch our YouTube channel. We're now up to, I think, 143 programs. We've got great, amazing content featuring you as esteemed faculty. And of course, Deb Creer did a great program. Be sure to catch that, all about, she went to PodFest and did a debrief for us on what are the hot trends in podcasting. And these are trends that you can apply towards your group programs, towards your speaking engagements, to you being a podcast guest. And so be sure to watch that replay. And of course, Gloria St. Martin Lowry led us in a beautiful program. We all, you want to talk about leaned in. We all leaned in to listen to what can we do to build champions and allies in our organizations that we work with, in our communities, in our tribes. Great program, Gloria. Thank you. We also focused on how to build a 7-figure business with your coaching and consulting business. Now, for many of you, you're saying 7-figure, Kathleen, that's way too small. I meant monthly. Okay, monthly. Aha, and that's for sure. Sonia Jante did a program about how to make the right choices and how to take the right risks. She had an assessment in there that you will want to take advantage of. It was another great program. And of course, Christina DiGiacomo talked about how to supersize and charge your speaking business, because you know we're all speakers in everything we're doing using AI. So be sure to check that out. So I get the great privilege, and you know we go fast because that's how we operate here in our council. I get the great privilege to introduce Susan K. Younger. Susan has been a dear friend of mine for many years, and I consistently am so impressed with how Susan shows up for people all the time. She is committed to building tribes, building communities, and lifting and empowering other people. She uses the power of her platform. She has monthly programs that are local, which are super terrific. If you're in the Dallas area, you want to check those out. Susan is also an author and a member of C-Suite Network, a esteemed faculty member in our council, and a thought council member as well. So Susan, you may know she has a very deep background in architecture, a male-dominated field, but in that field, Susan rose through the ranks and has a deep background in retail, in business, as well as the human side of business, which was perfect for our discussion today. Integrating body work, massage, the mind-body connection, connecting our right and left brains. So there's not a more perfect person to speak today about how to build compassion, build connection, and do this all for your greater good and the good of the world. So with this, I'd like to pass over the baton to you, Susan. And let's take ourselves off mute and give Susan a round of applause here. How about that?
Thank you,
Yay.
thank
It's
you,
a little
thank you.
exercise too. That's right. Yeah, good.
Thank you, my
Susan,
dear.
let's feature you. Thank you.
So I just love being with this group for many, many reasons. It's great to see some of you that I know quite well and others that I don't get to see very often. And with that, it is the sort of thing that I really wanted to pull up what is the definition of compassion. And so I've put it in the chat and let me see if it'll, yeah. And I'll read it to you where it says compassion literally means to suffer together. And, I think for many of us, that's kind of like, oh, I didn't think of it that way. But among the emotional researchers, it's defined as that feeling that arises when you are confronted with another's suffering and feel motivated to relieve their suffering. Compassion and is not the same as empathy or altruism, and although those concepts are all related. And I think for many of us, it really does become this fusing of those pieces together in our lives when we hear things that we stand for in the passion of what excites us about working with others, helping others, and building business that we want to support specific topics, but we want to do it with others that we feel have the understanding of what it is to make the people that are working in the business with you see their dream inside your dream or understand why working to do something that may not be something they would choose to do automatically is still important to be done to fulfill what the business needs and to help them build the things in their business or in their life that they want that have absolutely nothing to do with what you're asking them to do in a day-to-day work situation. But I think all of us can turn around and go, there have been times where we were working with somebody and we felt they had no compassion for anyone. And we can think of those bosses that left us feeling like dirt or left us feeling unseen. And we were hoping for some bit of a compassion, even if we didn't need it to be something that they, jumped in to help us. But I also think we need to stop and think about how many times have we turned our compassion into expecting somebody else to look at it the same way we did, instead of us turning ourselves into someone who had an open enough mind to be curious about what was really going on in their life, what surrounding things for them that might not be showing up in business are having a major effect on how they are able to perform or show up. How are we able to, from time to time, step back from what we are requesting because we are hearing what they really need in that moment instead of telling them what we need from them? And I think that's where the part of compassion comes into play in developing how you use emotional intelligence and empathy to really engage with a staff to make them feel that they have a reason to show up on a daily basis. One of the events that I was at on Monday was the Dallas Mavericks Women's Symposium. And what I love about being with that group of women, much like I love being with this group of women here, is that literally they had people in the audience of 300 coming up to people that work for the Mavericks and going, is it like this at work? Because it was so empowering for these women to feel seen and heard that they couldn't believe that that's the way business was, or was this just for show? And everybody that was asked was able to say, yes, I feel seen and heard in the work environment. And it's beautiful when you can find that sort of camaraderie. And I know that's what many of us really help to try and build in the working with others. So when we can take our focus off of ourselves and turn it outwards towards others, it really broadens our perspective on the world and allows us to take in those pieces that may be from a completely different perspective than our own, and ask those questions, why is this important to somebody else, so we can help them to see something from a perspective that maybe they wouldn't originally have chosen to look at, but we can help them to find a way to explore it from their perspective that makes them go, oh, aha, I had never thought of that, or even for us to go, aha, I just learned something. We have to keep ourselves on that open path to thinking. But when you hear like Harvard Business Review doing reports about how companies are really looking at EQ as equally important to IQ, and in some cases more important, because you can find people with the skills. However, if they cannot interact in a great way with others, then they are not of great service within the company. You can find out that most of the Fortune 500 companies have paid for trainings to come in and teach people how to interact emotionally more intelligently. Yet when you ask many people in business at this point, they are burnt out. The employees aren't engaged. We obviously have much to still learn and implement in what we are doing to be compassionate and empathetically work with others. So when we think about emotional intelligence and taking that compassion and being able to elevate it beyond just that feeling of suffering with someone, we need to look at what are our self-awareness about how do we take in this information? Do we start to grumble and moan about the fact that they aren't thinking what we want them to be thinking? Do we look at what is really happening to them or notice if something has changed where somebody had been very much a very active and supportive person in the company and now they're having a different attitude? What in life or business may have happened to them that we haven't been willing to explore and open up? There's also the whole idea of motivation, and that's where we talk about what is it that is their dream in life. Frequently, somebody's working to pay the bills. They're at that very low level of they just need the financial support, and they haven't ever explored the opportunity of how they could grow into a position. And I can remember when I was working in the department store, we're talking decades ago, but one of my staff was told he could never have my position because he didn't have a degree. And I went to the guy that had told him, which was my boss, had told him that. And I said, if you ever say that to one of my employees again, you will find us both walking out the door because I said, you have just told him he has no motivational reason to stay and work here. He has no ability to grow into a position. I have no problem with you telling him ideally a degree would be what we are looking for. But how do we help him to grow in the position he's in? Because he is capable and willing and he is open to learning. So, how can we help him on the job to get that? Or how can we help him to get education we want? And this guy was like shocked that I was thinking that way. However, I knew that this was a young man who had the capability to do things, and the degree was the least of what he needed. He soon went on to elevate himself within the company, and decades later, he was running a department equal to or larger than what I was running. So I think we frequently fail to look at how do we help to motivate someone so that they have the emotional intelligence to do their best. The other piece of
Susan,
this
can I
is
jump in? Because we've got some questions in the chat.
absolutely,
Could we do that? Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So we have you as our guide today and our mentor. So we've got questions, right? So Wendy, I knew you had some question. You had a question. Laurel, a question, and also, I'm curious. What are you finding, ladies? What's happening with compassion with your clients in the corporations, organizations, even one-on-one work that you're doing? What's happening around compassion? Are people compassion full or compassion drained? Right? Yep. So feel free, unmute yourself, jump in. We've got some great questions, Susan, for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I, I'm jumping in because I think my question kind of links to what you were just saying. I consider myself a very compassionate person, but when pressure happens, as much as I want to be compassionate, you know, I might lose my compassion. So how as a leader and somebody who's, leading other people, guiding them through coaching and all of that, how do you find, what is the best way you find to keep your compassion at a higher level when things are sometimes very stressful?
Wendy, I think that is where we have our own, whether you want to call it a board of directors or a team of supporters, those that you can turn to vent what you're feeling in the moment and maybe ask for the advice that you need to help you see from a different perspective. I frequently find it's being able to know who you can turn to and say, this is irritating me. And and have them have enough understanding to be able to help you look at things from a different perspective in that moment, or remind you what you really want to do. I know I had this discussion with somebody when they had received something from a member of a program that they were facilitating. And they said, I just want to tell them this. And instead, it was the need for me to say to her, you know, why don't you stop and think about the fact that she's asking this? And because I do bank code, I'm going to speak in the language of bank. She's asking for a blueprint description for her to have you do what she's not willing to do. You need to coach her in this moment on why you are asking her to do this and step up in what she is hoping to achieve in this, but you need to frame it in a way that she can hear it. And she goes, oh crap, I know I need to do that. Thank you for helping me to see that. So that she ended up rewriting what she was sending. You know, I think we have reached this point where frequently we just boom, start to hit something, and we do not in any way uh, pull ourselves back from uh, an immediate push instead of going, I need to take a moment to breathe. I need to take a walk to reframe this. How do I, in this moment, find my own center of compassion, my own center of empathetic response in order to be able to act with the self realization that I need to do in this moment?
Susan, beautiful. And, we are
You.
so open to you leading us in something like that as well. And Michelle, you had your hand raised. Please jump in, dear. And Laurel too next. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and so such good information, and I'm looking at some of the comments and questions, and I like that compassion is a verb. So that's important. One of the and Kathleen, you asked the question, what are we finding from our clients and organizations that we're working with? I am finding and have been finding that while people, leaders, know that they should be compassionate, that they are not. And they are so pressured and in such a hurry to get so much done that they're not willing a lot of times to grow themselves so that they can become more compassionate. And that's some of the work that I do in terms of empathy and leadership. And it's to be honest, it's frustrating because they know they need to do it and they're not willing to invest themselves to do it.
Michelle, thank you. And Susan is raising the bar for all of us, leading the way. This was such a perfect topic for you, Susan. I mean, we just naturally evolved into it because it's who you are in your stand in the world. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Michelle, I think that's where you sometimes have to look at the companies you're either aligning yourself with or offering to work with and continue to call out for them what you see. And at some times you have to choose to say, this is not a company I am able to work with because they are unwilling to do the work they need to do themselves.
You're
Now,
so right. And it is very liberating. I mean, I think back to a client that I had that was awful. I mean, and it is very liberating to say, you know what? No. Next, right? I mean,
yes,
that is very liberating. It just is frustrating because I do see that they want to. Some are willing to, but it takes personal growth to be willing to do that. And I do love working with companies who are willing to do it. But when I think about, the bigger picture, what I see out there,
we have a lot to do. Yes, we have a lot to do.
Some
And
potential opportunity.
and some
Absolutely.
and sometimes I think it's finding the right person in a company to start, maybe not at the level that is in an inability to react to it in the moment, but maybe somebody else is able to create that crack within that company, that you bring it in and one department is like excited about the changes, and as their changes start to expand the business and people start to go, wait a minute, how come that group in the company is doing so well and we're still suffering through all this stuff? Maybe we need to look at this. And the company then starts to challenge themselves on, why have they allowed someone to be negative and uncompassionate and unwilling to make the changes that they know the company needs? I think we have all seen somebody at a various point that is like the cool salesperson, but they're the person nobody wants to work with. But because their production has been high, people have been unwilling to say, maybe we need to reframe what this person's responsibilities are. And yet,
Yeah.
once others start to rise up because they no longer feel pressed down by those negative thoughts, all of a sudden they go, oh, wait a minute, what were we doing? We were probably limiting ourselves instead of expanding ourselves.
And then I'll be quiet, but you did make me think of, I had one client who was so compassionate, and it was about starting a DEI program. He was in tears. I mean, it was awesome. Because he cared so much. I mean, he was afraid to start bringing the subject up in his company for fear that people might not want to participate. But he was so passionate about it that he was brought to tears, and he did do it. And so, that I love, right? I love working with people like that.
Yeah, I think that's a great example, Michelle. Thanks for sharing that. So,
And Susan,
Laurel,
could I jump in and say the program that Gloria St. Martin Lowry facilitated with us about building champions, advocates, and allies, go back and watch that on our YouTube channel. There's really beautiful tactical stuff in there. Who are our compassionate advocates that we can go to that will help us change the organization? We can't do the heavy lift on our own, can we?
right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Susan, Laurel, I think she was waiting. You were waiting so passionately, Laurel. Yeah.
Hi,
Hey,
everybody.
welcome.
Susan and I have known each other for a long time, and we've had many of these conversations. And in my many years of coaching, one of the things that has been, and I think we've all kind of touched on it a little bit, but I'll restate it from my own context. One of the things that I've found with clients, particularly corporate clients, is they go, "Oh, that's the soft stuff. That's not the important stuff." And so, from a marketing standpoint, it's hard to find those companies and those people that acknowledge and recognize how important things like compassion and a lot of other characteristics and skills are for their employees. So, so it's hard from a marketing standpoint, and then it's also difficult to get their time because compassion is inside work. It's not outside work. And so many companies look for training that is cerebral or external or conscious in nature, which doesn't really create the change. So I thought it might be worth getting Susan's brilliance on how do you get to those people at that inside level. That's what my work is about. I'm an NLP practitioner and trainer, and so I work at the unconscious level. And that's where the change occurs. And we've got to imbue that in our marketing, our interactions, and our work, whether it's in the community or in our families or business.
Thanks, Laurel. What I find is some of it is storytelling. Some of it is being able to show somebody that is truly looking for those points of, hey, this is what I need to measure it by. When you can show them measurements that have happened in a powerful way for another company, all of a sudden they're going, oh, that ain't so soft. I was on a thing with a group of HR people at the end of February, and the biggest thing they said is, you know what? these are not soft skills. These are really important, hard to do things that more companies need to recognize. And to hear that on a broadcast that was talking to many companies at a much higher level, not just solopreneurs, but others, it was really great to see. So, yeah.
Beautiful. And I'm also curious for each of us, are we willing to go to the dark side for a moment and point out the cost to the team, the individual, the leader, the organization for a lack of compassion? Because I think people are feeling the cost of this now post-COVID, especially loneliness, sadness, lack of connection, lack of conviction, lack of community. And
Exactly.
so compassion can be, Susan, you're all about this. Compassion can be the way.
And I think that's why when you look at top reasons that businesses are saying what they're looking for at this point, it's how do I help the people that have burnout? Why is there so much mental health needs in our companies at this point? Why are we facing the fact that we cannot engage the young employees because we don't know how to communicate with them? All of a sudden, their questions very much frame up why compassion, empathy, and what they in the past have not been willing to talk about are so important. And it's interesting when you see these things expanding in just small bits in companies, people really start to notice, hey, wait a minute, this is working. And that allows you to then share that in other ways with other groups that they can then see.
Yeah, I came across I think this is happening in corporations and more everywhere, but it really was the epitome of what I'm seeing how people identify themselves. It was a retail environment, and I just pointed out that there was a sign with a product that was no longer available and just suggested they take the sign down. Not my job. Well, how about telling your manager it probably should come down? Oh, I'm just an employee. So, it's a lot of times people are there just as a job, but they don't identify themselves culturally or compassionately or anything with the environment that they're in. So I think those comments that it really takes, it takes our management to learn differently, to
Thanks,
be able to
Laurel.
foster that.
Yeah,
Thanks.
great.
Sahar? Saharta, please. And I'm sure I'm
Yeah,
screwing up your
Srijata,
name.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. I'm Srijata and I'm coming here first time, thanks to Susan. What I wanted to add here is about what I'm seeing while I'm working with leaders. Well, I work in leadership challenges and DEIB with corporate America as well as with women leaders. So I also work with male leaders, and this I'm seeing more in male leaders, interestingly. So whenever I talk about compassion, empathy, or even, DEIB comes into the picture, the standard dialogue that I hear is that, yes, I know I need to be more compassionate. I know I need to be more empathetic, but I don't have the time or I don't have the bandwidth. I want my team to be more compassionate, more empathetic, but I don't have the time. I don't have the bandwidth. I'm already hard pressed for too many things, which is true, by the way. There are many things that is happening. There is too many context switching that is happening. And it comes to, for example, let's say DEI hiring, diversity based hiring or things like that. And question comes in, listen, I need to hire in next 2 weeks. If I don't get to see women resumes, how can I go ahead and wait for it? I don't have the time. So it gets into that phase again and again and again. And I would agree with Michelle here that it becomes, I want to do it, I need to do it, but I'm not aware that right now I'm in a bad situation. I don't know the cost that I have to incur because of this. I don't know, when I'm not compassionate, if my team leaves, I have to hire another person, spending 10 times more money. It is directly correlated to that, because they're not seeing that these soft skills are actually skills that are stopping the organizations from higher productivity peak performance, better decision making, and better action taking. And that's where I kind of get frustrated. I don't know how to explain that. So I'd love to open this up for the forum here to share their thoughts.
Here's one of the things I will add. When they start talking about the what they can't, it frequently becomes the point for you to point out the fact of, do you like to work with people who are always negative? And they're like, no, you get to turn exactly what they're doing and saying in their moment to how do you feel when that comes at you? And how would you like to feel when that sort of stuff is coming at you? One of the things that I think is really interesting is that 80% of our time in communication, we're only about 5 to 15% really consciously engaged. So many times we're ready to just spew out an answer because something triggers in our mind and it's like, oh, let me tell you what I know, instead of waiting for them to really finish explaining where they're at, what they need, and being able to, like you shared, if they are having to replace somebody, the cost of that can be so much higher than actually helping somebody to elevate their skills and their ability to engage properly. And some of them just need a clue. Nobody ever took time to share that with them. And once it's shared with them, they can quickly flip a switch and go, oh, wait a minute, now I'm starting to catch myself. And it becomes something that collectively you can work together to build that consistency across the board.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, Susan.
aren't we the way showers? Susan, you were the way shower in getting this discussion going and bringing this important topics to us, raising our awareness, turning the light on for us, and we get to then pay it forward, don't we?
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, it
Absolutely.
really is about sharing it in a way that allows others to go, oh, wait a minute, you're still managing to do well and you're kind. I guess it's not such a bad idea, or I guess it's working in some respects. Amy,
Yeah.
you've got something to say, honey?
Yeah, yes, I want to build on to that, and I'm thankful for those who realize that there are folks that do struggle and they want to help them get to a certain part. I think sometimes I've been very frustrated, being told that I don't have a high EQ, or you know, I do have a tendency to be a little snarky, a little bit. But usually for me, I have been like happy go lucky. We're gonna get this done. Yes, we're gonna great. I'm the cheerleader. We're gonna da da da. And then if I'm at the point of being like totally frustrated, I'll snap. Well,
That's that dark side of our nurturing.
yes,
The
or we've
thing
taken it all
about
in.
those of us who are frequently the caregiver, the one who is really working to hold the community together, the you know the dark side of that nurturing is a neediness at times, and also it's like, you do, as I've said to people, you do not want to see what happens when you cross the line with me, because what you think could never happen typically does. I can blow up in a way that is unbelievable to people. But it's that we have been compressed to the point of we don't feel we have an outlet. That is also a moment that needs compassion for us to go, holy crap, that's not their standard way of doing things. We need to be able to give them a point to let go. And I think Brene Brown had done something where when she was working in Houston in the Papa's restaurants, they called it being in the weeds. And they knew that if they were at that point, they could say that to the rest of the staff. And somebody knew, wow, let's give them time to, go release their steam, figure out how to do this, and then come back and reframe what needs to be done. And I think, if you watch TV and you see all the shows that it's all about how do we pit people against each other, that looks like that should be our norm. And no, it should be just the opposite. We should be helping people to find a way for them to get a moment to release the tension they're feeling and to find what it is they need to give them that supportive stance, that foundation that will help them to move forward. And they may have a clue about what needs to be done in a business, to put those pieces together in a more respectful way for all.
Is there a way I can build onto that though? I mean, I really appreciate that response, and it is a matter of how can they build it for everyone, but also then realizing that, like, well, you and I, you know, we have the way we communicate is a certain way, and there are other folks who don't communicate that way. I don't think that there needs to be a guilt when we try to maybe overcompensate for whatever and be like, oh, I think sometimes we have those pendulums where, okay, well, now we all need to be socially and emotionally at peace with everybody. And that's not how it works. And it doesn't always work when you're in a fast-paced, you know, situation. And for those gentlemen that have had an issue where like, I don't have time, or you know, I want to be, we need to have compassion towards them as they grow. And
Right.
I think it goes back to showing them what they can
Yeah.
can do in a way. Maybe it's gradual and it may not happen immediately, and that's going to be more appropriate for the way that I operate, because otherwise I'm going to be like, you're telling me that I'm not emotionally whatever, blah blah blah, you know. So anyways, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Amy. Love you, honey. Wendy, you have another comment for us. And hi, Terry. We see you're next.
Thank you. I was just curious if you find that there are big generational differences, because I've worked with some, you know, like 20-year-olds, right, who they're in this kind of zone that it's, you know, who needs all that? I'm going to do what I want to do. I don't really care about what my workplace is, because, you know, I'm going to change jobs in 6 months because that's what they do. So they don't connect on that level. So I was just curious if you've seen in your work, Susan, or anybody else here, if you find that who you're talking to and what generation they're from, if there's a measurable difference.
For me, it is not so much a measurable distance by generation, but it's by experience and culture and what they have had as focus upon themselves. You know, I've known some people that are in that younger generation that have as much compassion as anybody I can think of and are really willing to jump in and do, but they may not have had the conditioning that we are expecting them to have on what the expectation is and why. Because when you think about it, a lot of these people have graduated in a lockdown, have not had an opportunity to really be engaged in community. And if you only look at your community as being what's on this phone, you you don't have that explanation that I was blessed to receive, because I grew up in a family where dinner conversations were, my dad would talk about what a day at work is. My mom and dad would take us out on a Friday night, which it never occurred to me they were taking us along on their date night. It was a family dinner, but it was in a little supper club that served drinks and had dancing. And, you know, they were, in a sense, role modeling for me things that kids these days don't necessarily get to see. So, so we have to have compassion for those who never experienced some of that. And what I have truly found is a lot of times when we share with them in a respectful way what we need from them, it gets a whole different response. But if we grumble about the fact that why aren't you doing this, and we talk in a really gruff way about something happening, that's when they turn it off, because they've been probably yelled at most of their life. And it's more those situations that create that than just generation. I can find people that are my age that aren't any fun to be with either. And they're pretty much, you know, not somebody that I want to say has the emotional intelligence I would have hoped they had learned. And when I think back to in my youth, some of my friends were not exactly responsible employees either. So I think it's just kind of like we have to respect the fact that sometimes what it is they've been conditioned to think there is no reason to stay. Nobody gets the pension anymore. Nobody gets the, you know, 30 years at a company. The companies are cutting them, so why should they be making an alliance to us that's long term?
Yeah. Susan, I will take Terry's comment question and Gloria's, and then we want to give you the platform to complete our time together, because You know, we're known for compassionately expediting and putting so much fabulousness in our calls, right?
Yeah.
We
Thank
want to help you get in and get out and have a great experience with time left over, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Terry, please jump in. So glad you're here.
Thanks, Kathleen. So
Yeah.
two things. One, Amy, one thing is that sometimes it's not about you not having the emotional intelligence. It's about what they want. And not, but sometimes also if you ask them, what are you not getting that you need? Not what do you want, but what are you not getting that you need? And this is kind of in line with Susan's bank code system, but it's 9 times out of 10, they will stop. And a lot of times it's not about you, it's about them. But because we make our decisions emotionally, they have gotten themselves in a pattern. So, but the other thing I wanted to throw in here is that another way of talking about soft skills is they are power skills.
Yes, I love
And
that
they are
phrase.
power
Thank
skills,
you.
not just because they are powerful, but because, like plugging in an electric cord, they power all our other skills. And so we also need surge protectors on them and things like that. But the idea that these soft skills and compassion and all these things are what allow us to make use of all our other tools. Yeah, you could cut a tree limb off without an electric saw, but you know how long it takes to do it with my grandpa's old, hand saw? Not doing it. So thanks, Susan. This has been a great session.
Thank you. And I think I'm going to steal that power skills with a surge protector. I think we will probably all be stealing that and having to give you credit for that line, Terry. I love that.
Terry, thanks for powering us up.
Gloria.
Gloria.
For me, I love this discussion about compassion. And I think, Susan, you are just so wonderful at it. And what you also do is remind us that compassion there's not one way to demonstrate compassion. Because of the mindset, we have to be curious. We need to challenge the assumptions that we have. To be our most effective at being compassionate, we still have to be who we are, right? And if I can just look at, my small little team, and we've got Sue on the team who is super compassionate, and you feel her emotion and all that. My compassion shows up in a different kind of way, right? Maybe, a little bit more like Amy's. And it is just a reminder that we still need to be ourselves, because if we're not, it's not going to come across, it's not going to feel compassionate to the people that we're working with. And I love that you challenged us to even challenge our own assumptions about people in certain states, right? Maybe they need a little bit more compassion. Maybe we don't take things as personally. And for me, it keeps coming back to, the stronger the relationships you have with people, the easier it is to be compassionate, because you know more about them. You know what makes them tick. You know where their hot buttons are. And when you have all that, then you can help them out with just small little nudges when they need that, and much more support when they need that too. So love the discussion, everybody's input. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. That's beautiful.
Beautiful. Susan, would you like to wrap us up, and then we'll do a quick overview of what's next, and then complete with our very brief and concise takeaway from our time together, and an appreciation for Susan as well.
So I love the question that just came in. How do we increase our compassion for strangers? Sometimes it's start to recognize the story you are telling yourself about what got them where they are. And one of the exercises that I remember being asked to go through years ago was, when you were upset with somebody, if you could put this as, this is the best they can be. Why is this the best they can be? You start to ask yourself, what would have put me to that point? You know, when you see that person begging on the street and you're going, why would they do that? And you start to think, what what set them so inward that they could not figure out how to reach out and create something to engage with the world other than a sign on the street corner. Um, Even family members that you have no understanding of how they do not grasp who you are. When you start to think about what made them what they are, who they come to for themselves naturally, that is completely different than how you show up, you start to understand the facts that brought them to the point of having fears about things that you don't have fears about, but you know they do. And it's those pieces that we sometimes have to put in place with the strangers in our life that are necessarily family. I mean, I one of my favorite quotes came from a greeting card I saw once that said, "Friends are God's apology for family," because sometimes family is the ones who seem to be more the strangers than we would like them to be. And and in many situations, the best way to do it is to sit down and get a story from somebody. Find out what has brought them to this point. What is going on in this moment for them that you are completely unaware of? They may not be willing to share with you, but on the other hand, they might turn around and say, "Thank you for asking. I don't want to talk about it at this time, but the fact that you asked makes me feel seen and heard." And what I love about what I do with Bank is it gives me the options to look at things from other perspectives when I understand the values. Those value points allow us to stop for a second and look at it from a different perspective. And when we do that, it opens up that world that allows us to go forward. So I really appreciate you giving me this platform to share with everyone here, Kathleen. I love the fact that all of these women showed up, and I think everybody, except maybe one or two, actually joined in the conversation, which is always delightful to see. And I love the fact that anyone who wants to continue this conversation, tonight I'm doing what I call my Thrive and Transform with Sky. So I've started doing a monthly Thursday night at 6 on Zoom. And sometimes it's me and one person, and a couple of times it's been just me. And that's okay too, because it's not about getting anybody there, but it's a point to continue a discussion like this or see what's coming up for people and let it be a moment to reflect on how your day was, how your week is, how your month is going, what do you want out of the year. And then, as you mentioned, the other thing I do is my Table of Soul, which is the fourth Tuesday of every month down at the Network Bar. And a few of these gals who are local have been there with me where we've had some great conversations and continue that. And as you do all these wonderful things, Kathleen, with the Women's Coaching and Consulting Council, you shine the light on so many of us and give us opportunities to share our brilliance and help each other to see what beautiful things we can help to manifest in the world in a way to make it better than what we're experiencing in some moments. I'm going to put some contact stuff for me in the chat now, and I'll let
Thank
you
you.
go back to closing out this beautiful meeting.
Oh, beautiful. And what a beautiful space we've had today. Yeah. We know you've loved every minute of this. So let's give some sparkle fingers to Susan. Yes, yes, yes. Awesome. Awesome. Lots of love. Great. So let's complete our time together. And it has been a very rich time, hasn't it? Very heartwarming. So we did the job, Susan. You did the job today. Thank you very, very much. Mission accomplished. And so be sure to connect with Susan on LinkedIn. She's on Facebook. And of course, even your event tonight. I'm going to clear my schedule, Susan. I'm going to be on that call celebrating with you. I think that's fantastic. So, in our council, and one of my basic philosophies is always have something awesome to invite people to. Community is so important to me, and I know it's important to each of you. So come join us the Saturday morning Women's Success Circle. Oh my gosh, we are now on our number 93, our 93rd consecutive Saturday. 27 minutes. We have a topic that changes every week. It is delicious, luscious, and filling up your cup. So come join us. And by the way, you'll get an invitation to all of these in your email box. Next Thursday, we're talking about how to build a global business, a global and local business. And this is more important than ever before, that you've got your local roots and you have a global business. And it's just going to be a fantastic conversation next week. So, you can see we're picking up the pace every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern. We have great programs. And of course, for our STEAM faculty, on the fourth Thursday of every month at 1 p.m. Eastern, we've got our esteemed faculty member gathering. That's another quick 27 minutes, because we love the number 27. It means new beginnings. So we gather, we talk about what's new and good in our world, talking about how we're moving together as a community, celebrating, promoting, and showcasing each of you. So we'd love to have you join us as our faculty. So as we complete, I would love to have each of us share briefly, what's your biggest takeaway? And what's your biggest appreciation for Susan? Your recognition. Let's give her some visibility, and notice we've got the little graphic at the top talking about us, because it's each of you that made today's program very special. And I'll also put in the chat that book a time with me in Calendly. I would love to talk with you, strategize with you. What's going on with you in your world? How can we as a community, and me also, specifically support you in what you're up to? Okay, so let's have that conversation, book a time, and let's get together. So we'll put us on gallery mode, and curious what your biggest takeaway is from our time together. And of course, appreciation, visibility for Susan is always appreciated. So just wondering, like to start? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I'll jump in and start, because you kicked off this session with what's a word to describe how we were feeling. And I led with tired. I am no longer tired after this discussion, by the way. And I'm trying to search for what would that word be. And it is, I could do the thing inspired, but really I feel energized from the conversation. That's probably the best description of it. And I think, it's one of those things that it's probably what I needed right here, right in this moment. And I knew coming in to hear more from Susan would be amazing, and no surprise there that it was, and even more so. So I'm just appreciative of the conversation, appreciative of the community, and I appreciate it so much to just feel energized to tackle the rest of my day. Thank you.
Oh, thrilled for that, Gloria.
Thank you.
I'll pop in now, and I thank Susan for the invitation. This morning, it was a little bit of a scramble to get here, but I'm here.
Great, Laurel. Yeah.
And I've always appreciated Susan and her level of wisdom and how she attacks a particular topic. So I was really appreciative to be a part of this. Thank you. And love you
happy
too.
birthday, because yesterday was
Thank you.
Laurel's birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
We won't say which one.
49 and holding, right?
Thank you. And you all can guess. I love that. Any rate, compassion is just all of this discussion, and everyone's perspective and experience with it has been so helpful and opened up a little reframing on some areas as well. So I appreciate this very much. Thank you for the invitation to your group. And I appreciate you all.
Great, good. Michelle, I think you had your hand up, and Srijata,
yeah.
yes. Yeah, jump in.
Michelle, you can go ahead.
Yeah.
Thank you, Susan, for telling me about this. And I was going to have a meeting, and I was going to have to leave early, and that meeting got canceled. So I got to stay, and I'm really glad, because I was able to benefit a lot. And Susan, I'm so happy to be connected with you on projects that we're working on.
I love that. Thank you.
What I appreciate about today is that I feel like I'm a part of a community, and it gives me perspective, because sometimes I experience things and I feel frustrated about some things, hopeful about others. And it helps me know I'm not alone in the experiences that I have, which makes me feel like part of a community. So I'm taking away a lot, and I'm really glad I was able to come today. And also, I hadn't thought of compassion about suffering, so that was also a good takeaway. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle. So glad you were here. Yeah, thank you. Srijata, I think you were jumping in too.
Yes, yeah, I think I just want to say one thing. Of course, thanks to Susan for bringing me here. And thanks to her, I think I finally found my tribe and my wolf pack. So I do see these 12 women out here as my wolf pack. And I know I'm going to fall back on any of you at any point in time. I do that with Susan all the time, but 12 of you, be ready for getting bugged from me. So that's my, takeaway today. In a good way, of course. And I feel really happy and I would say energized, like Gloria said, right? I was inspired in the morning, but I think I'm energized after this conversation. And I feel that even though there are challenges in our respective worlds, when we bring it together like this, all of us collectively trying to solve the problem, I think the answers are much better. So thank you. And power skills, I am definitely stealing that, Terry. And I'm, of course, going to give you a I'm definitely going to say that this is because of you, the power skills, but I'm definitely going to use that.
Very nice. Well, welcome home to you and welcome home to each of you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. The power of community, compassion, right? Who else? Yeah, Wendy, jump in, please.
I just wanted to say again, thank you, Kathleen and Susan, for the invite. It's, one big takeaway is that you do get to meet amazing, powerful, insightful women, and that alone is, priceless. So I appreciate everybody being here and your contribution. It not only energized me, but it made me feel very expansive. And that's what I'm always pushing myself to do, is to be personally expanding my world. So you did that. And respect to what Susan said, I feel like one of the things that I learned is believe it or not, that compassion is different for everybody, and we need to appreciate that. And that's what being compassionate is about. Not trying to make it something that is uniform. And I think that's that is, for me, very powerful. So thank you all. And I would love to keep in touch with all of you. And I love being a part of a tribe. So
Beautiful, Wendy. Thank you. Yeah, great.
Wendy.
Yeah. Who else as we complete our time?
I'll
Take
do two.
away. And yeah, thank you, Terry, please. And Amy next. Yeah. Or whomever. Right. Yeah.
So just a big thank you to Susan and to Kathleen for creating this space today. This was such a great energy and such thoughtful contributions from everybody. And I really enjoyed it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Terry. Glad
love
you're
that.
here.
Just
Thanks,
real quick,
Terry.
I had a real poopy little moment where I realized I messed up on something and it's costly, and I could sit there and beat myself up, and I kind of did for a little bit, but I'm here to be compassionate to myself as well. And, I still kind of want to go crawl up in a ball and just cry, but that's okay. It's onward and upward. And, thanks for letting me kind of get some things off my chest. And I appreciate it. So love you guys. And Susan, you know where it is.
Anytime, darling. Anytime. Love you.
Love you too.
Thank you. Carol, anything as we complete our time? From Aloha, Hawaii. We're so happy you're bringing the Aloha spirit to us.
So I just want to thank Susan, not just for this session, but for how she shows up in the world. Thank you for role modeling compassion, for listening, for reflecting, for always being positive with us. We appreciate you.
Carol. Thank you. Love you all.
Yeah. So let's celebrate and amplify Susan. We'll be doing some posts. Our recording will be available in 24 hours. Let's lift her up. And guess what? We get to have the halo effect and lift each other up and ourselves at the same time with great compassion, love. So bye for now. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. What an uplifting, fabulous, and tactical and strategic program today. Thank you, Susan. More to come, right?
Yeah. Thank you so much. Loved it.
Have a beautiful day. Good. Thank you. Bye, sisters. Lots of love to
Bye-bye.
each of you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.